Hello, everybody. This is Eric. I'm a professional counselor and helping people through the steps. I will begin by saying that I don't represent any particular 12-step group, even though we use a lot of the material from how this all started. This isn't meant to replace counseling or professional therapy or even a 12-step program, but I really wanted to just get some readings out there to help people understand what the steps are about. So we're just going to jump right in because there's just a lot to cover, and I don't say that to overwhelm you. In the AA book, we're going to be going to page 84. Very simple. While we do this, I'm going to multitask a bit. Let's see if I can successfully do this. I think that works. Yeah, so we're going to be looking at what is step 10 and 11. 10 is we continued to take a personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admitted it. And step 11 is we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out. This is real simple. In recovery, I'm God directed. Like I don't run the show anymore. I'm asking God to run the show. I'm not going after God. I'm going after God's will. I want God's will, not my will, be done. And how do I accomplish any of this? I do this through God's power, not willpower. Okay, and so that's a big thing that changes everything in this. It's hard to do this without sounding religious or going to turn people off because, religion and politics, people should just leave. Separate. But the reality is that this is how this program works. If we turn to page 84, we're going to see, well, I'm just going to read it. I think that's the best thing. We've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. We'll seldom be interested in liquor or overeating or undereating or lust or shopping too much or working too much or fixing others or drugs, etc. We'll seldom be interested in it. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. This is the top of page 85. And we will find that this has happened automatically without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. It just comes. That is a miracle of it. We are not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So this is meant to be kind of a challenging statement, but I do it all the time. Like, how many of us have this? And if you are going to meetings, how many people in the meetings have this? This is what you get when you work steps 1 through 9. It's just as simple as that. If you're still trying to fight your addiction, if there's cockiness, if there's fear, if you're not experiencing that safe and protected position in neutrality, the problem has been removed, then I would encourage you to actually pick up the book, grab a partner who in recovery, and just start working the steps like we've been working through them. And today we're going to really talk about how to do steps 10 and 11, which you do every day the rest of your life. So it says, and this is what we get if we keep in fit spiritual condition. So what is that? By the way, my hand gets really big as it comes near. It's just a weird optical illusion. It is easy to let up on a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcoholism or any addiction is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of a spiritual condition. Every day is a day we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are the thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. So, I don't really need to say anything. It says it for itself. It's powerful. It says, much has been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit or power or grace into us. To some extent, we have become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense, but we must go further, and that means more action. And at the bottom of page 85, it says, step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. So you may wonder, where is step 10? Well, let's just jump back a little bit. Before we just read, it says, step 10 would suggest we continue to take a personal inventory, continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Interesting word. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. And here I put a 1, a 2, a 3. It kind of tells you when it starts telling you what to do. If you do it, you'll get recovery. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, or fear. This is the middle of page 84, by the way. That's what we do. When they crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. Okay. We discuss them with someone immediately. We make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. So there's the recipe. So let's go to step 11, which is basically the same thing. It's just 11 is probably the practice of it. Step 10 is just that this is what you do. That's what we're going to be doing. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy in this matter of prayer. Better men, and I add women, than we are using it constantly. We need to use it constantly. It works if we have a proper attitude and work at it. So we actually have to have a proper attitude. So I see people saying, I was in the shower praying. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but really if you can't fit 10 to 15 minutes in the morning or in the evening, I just don't think you're going to recover. People took time. That's the work. The reality is I'm asking God for everything I need is what I'm doing. He does so much more for us than we could ever imagine, but we have to ask Him. You have not because you ask not. So they say at the top of page 86, it would be easy to be vague about this matter. Yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. So what is happening here? Even back in the 1940s, they were being afflicted with this thought, well, we don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to be politically incorrect. So that's why it would probably be, this is my guess, it would be easy to be vague about this, okay? But they say, no, these are definite, valuable suggestions. And the fascinating thing is, do we see people actually do these things in meetings? Do they talk about step 11 like this? When I'm in meetings, I may say, hey, this is what I do. And people go, wow, where did you get that? Right out of the AA book. And it works so well. And I'll just say it sucks if it doesn't. I get pretty excited about talking about this. So I'm just going to read this and then we'll kind of go through and explain it. When we retire at night, I think it's fascinating that they actually begin the day. They begin talking at night, then they talk about day. By the way, that's actually in the order of how things were created, the night and then the day. We constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? We've heard that before, so we're scanning for those 4 things. Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time, or were we thinking of what we could do for others, or what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. After making a review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. So, this is how it goes, is that we retire at night. So, you may have a certain prayers you do anyway, but what I do is I add these questions, and I actually have a prayer book. So I don't need to go get it and show you, but I made it. Well, actually, I'm going to show you. The reason is I think it's handy to actually show you. So I have a little prayer book, but see, I made a little card. So on one side it has upon when retiring, upon retiring, and then upon awakening. Before I just wrote it in the little thing, but I would recommend having something like this. Pretty soon you will just have it down pat. You'll just go, okay, it's the end of my night. And it doesn't have to be in order, but if you do it over and over, you'll begin to go, where was I selfish today? Where was I dishonest? Was I not honest with someone? And it may be dishonesty about my feelings. I may be holding a resentment. I was starting to get fearful. I had some back spasms. My mom woke up with a horrible neck thing, which kind of paralyzed her. So I was called upon it, and I don't think that's a bad idea. And by the time I talked with her, she was feeling better. Was I thinking of myself most of the time, what I want, or was I thinking of what I could pack into the stream of life? Was I kind and loving toward all? I was not as mean as I have been in the past with other situations. So today, thankfully, there's nothing that jumps out at me like I was really mean-spirited, although let me think. I was rough with my wife this morning in terms of responding to something that I could have been kinder. And, you can add patience in there. You're going to have days where it's just glaringly bad, and you'll see the stuff. Well, quickly scoop it up, transfer it, and say, God, help me. Some days are better than others, but I know what grid I'm using. Prior to recovery, I just didn't know what to look at. So let's look at some of this. And hopefully this is, were we resentful, selfish, dishonest? Let me spend a little time on that. Like, selfish could be that I want to do something that I really want to do. And it may be a good idea. I may get something stuck in my mind that I think is such a good idea, and I think I want the world to go along with it. This you'd find in that chapter, how it works, talking about a person wanting to run the whole show. Have I kept something? Oh, do I owe an apology? Do I need to apologize to people? A few days ago, I was really upset, wrapped around the axle with someone who was working on an insurance thing for me. I was having high expectations and I thought I was right. But the reality is, it doesn't really matter. I have to forgive anybody. So I thought, well, how do I owe an apology? And this is, I'll confess, I might have showed this on another one. I apologize. And then I was still reiterating how I thought they dropped the ball. So I thought, okay, I've got to do something different. I was at a grocery store and I bought these paleo bars, which I think are really cool. Actually, they're just healthy. They're individually wrapped. I thought, I'm going to buy a packet and drop it off at the agency and give my, what is it called? The phrase goodwill offering or peace offering. Oh yeah. I wasn't so afraid, because when you do these things, sometimes we get afraid. We're just afraid of being humbled or whatever. I walked in and I said, hi, it's me. And of course they look at me with this bag of paleo bars like, are you trying to sell something? I said, I'm Eric Poland. When I said that, no one reacted, but I pictured them going, oh my gosh, it's him. Because I kept pointing out like 3 phone calls, how they were just dropping the ball. Actually, to get really into the story, I think it's helpful so as I'm praying, I'm trying to do morning and evening prayers. I was ready to leave this company. I thought, no, I just see the writing on the wall. They dropped the ball too many times. I'm just trying to get this thing up and running. But I'm prayerful about it. I go call another agency that this could transfer to. And they said, it's that team? They said, no, that team is a good team. They said, no, you don't want to change to us. I took that as a sign from God that, okay, Eric, don't, because in my prayer, I thought, well, I don't want to terrorize them more and more with just being very nitpicky. But no, I took that as God's direction. So I knew I needed to stick with them, but I knew I needed to also apologize and make amends. So I came in with the bag of paleo bars. They were grateful. They were actually kind of laughing. And I said, I'm so sorry. I'm going to let the past be the past. We're going to move ahead and it's all going to work out. Now, when I was walking out, I felt a little bit tearful. The joy you have when you do the program is just incredible. It's actually the opposite and I love a phrase in this book. It says, as in war, the victor only seems to win. So you'll start to get joy and peace when you do the steps and when you connect with God in this way. And it sucks if you don't. That's going to be my new little phrase with this. So have I kept something to myself that should have been shared at once? Notice it doesn't say shared sometime. No, there is something about if there's something I need to get right, I'll just try to apologize quickly. My wife's pretty good at this, where we're having a disagreement and she starts to apologize and she kind of bows before me and says, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. And I forgive her. And then it's hard. It's just like, we just have to go on. Was I kind and loving toward all? That's always no, but some days are a little bit better than others. And it's a good screening device. Were we thinking of ourselves the whole time? Okay. Were we thinking of what we could do for others? So it's really important to understand that in this computer of life, it's like a window pops up and it says Eric's will, God's will, cancel. There's not a little phrase that says, click this answer for the rest of my life, say yes to all. Doesn't work that way. Every day, it seems like it's defaulted to Eric's will. And I have to move it to God's will manually. I have to say, God, your will, not mine, be done. And when I do that, amazing things happen. and what I don't, and I'm oblivious to this, then I end up having not a good situation go on. Now, when we do this, it says we are careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, because that would diminish our usefulness to others. See, it's so interesting. If I'm beating myself up, I'm a bad person, oh my gosh, I did this and that. That's selfishness. That's an obsession with self. An obsession with self is not the program. Okay? That's the problem, is this selfishness, this incredibly self, and more self. So if I use self-powered to try to fix my problems, it doesn't work. If I beat myself up, that implies that I was trusting in self. Okay, so yeah, this is freedom from self. Okay. And then we ask God's forgiveness, ask for what corrective measures should be taken. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, we wake up. Upon awakening, we think about 24 hours ahead. Boy, I could say a lot on that. Just it's been around for a long time. Jesus said, just only think about today. Tomorrow has enough worry for itself. And yet, how many of us are really just plagued about what's going to happen tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, especially this last year? We were just wanting to do, well, I shouldn't say we, but I think we're tempted to not be in the moment. We're tempted to go into the future and future trip, and it's just not a good place to be. So we do this, we consider our plans for the day. Now, the reality is I don't really even jump into that. I jump right into, before we begin what? It says we pray to have God direct our thinking, that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. So it's a literal prayer. Okay. So what we're doing, we're literally praying, God, help direct all my thinking. Help me not to be self-directed. Help me to be honest. Help me to be not fearful or resentful in making my plans for the day. God, you direct my thinking. And there's certain prayers that, are really good prayers. Things like, God, direct all this coming day brings to me with spiritual tranquility. Grant that I may fully surrender myself to your holy will. At every hour of this day, reveal your will to me. Bless my dealings with all who surround me. And whatsoever news may reach me in the course of the day, teach me to accept it with the calm soul and the firm conviction that all is subject to your holy will. Direct my thoughts and feelings and all my words and actions. And all that expected news, help me to teach it, to receive that news with a firm conviction that all is subject to your holy will. Help me to be straightforward. And another translation says honest, straightforward or honest with all those around me, neither embarrassing nor saddening anyone. Grant me the strength or power to endure the fatigue of the coming day and all the events that take place during it. Teach me to pray, to believe, to hope, to be patient, to forgive, and to love. Anyway, that's called the Prayer of Tranquility. You can find that online. I'll try to put some kind of post on there, but that comes from the Orthodox tradition. When I share that with people in 12 steps, they kind of flip out like, wow, that's an incredible prayer. How did they get it? Another prayer, kind of jumping ahead, I'll share it later. I think that might be a good way to end, but going back to the notes here. Before we begin, we pray to have God direct our thinking, divorced from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives. When facing a decision, so many times in life, you're going to have two good things and you just don't know what to do. It says we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. Now, these are quotes, right? These wording is right out of the AA book. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. The right answers will come. In fact, I'll read that again. It says out of the book here, in thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We are often surprised how the right answers will come after we have tried this for a while. What used to be a hunch or an occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. I put habit in my margin there. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we're going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on a plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. Okay. So, there's many examples. I think I've shared in the past with my wife. Oh, good to see you, Macrina. The reality is this will be posted online automatically, so you don't actually have to be here in live, and I understand that. So, but good to have you. The thing is, like, my wife could have had a treatment or not, and both things seemed like a good idea. So how do you know which one to do? And both, if you don't do it, she could end up getting more cancer. If she does do it, she could lose. This was a radioactive thing you do to get rid of extra thyroid cancer cells, and thyroid attracts itself to iodine. No, iodine attracts itself to thyroid cells. So it's fascinating in that you could drink radioactive iodine or take it. It goes and finds those cells and kills it. And you can lose some taste. You can have some problems. You could actually get some extra cancer. So what do? We were in a state of just praying and facing indecision. We did not know what course to take. In this journey, I do think that what it did do is cause me to reach out to God more. Instead of, oh, good, I got it all fixed. Now I'm going to go run off and do my own thing. That's the difference between the program is we start to see that the process itself helps draw me closer to God, and that God uses my pain and suffering to help me get close to him. Addictions says, take a pill and I'll feel better. And then it's all worked out. It's me managing my own life versus me unfurling my little paws here and saying, God, you do whatever you want and please guide me. And I have no idea what you want me to do, but I'm just going to try to wait on you. That's where the meditation comes in, that we pray, which is our talking to God. Meditation is us listening to God. So we sit there in silence. We relax and take it easy. Isn't this why we did our drugs of choice? Wasn't it for peace of mind? Liquid serenity. Take a medication. That'll take away the anxiety or the anger, the whatever. Now, I'm not saying everybody should go off medication, but I do tend to think we're over-medicated as a society. We then do behaviors. I can't take the stress. I just have to do this, these behaviors of shopping or eating or spending or sexuality, all that stuff, gambling. And so We have to be careful not to beat ourselves up. All these things are powers that are greater than ourselves. We can only get free from them by acquiring God's power. Why do step 10 and 11, as we're talking tonight, to unblock any blockages that are blocking me from his power one day at a time, so that then I will have that state of the problem does not exist for me. It would be easy to stay sober. There's no struggle. So that's the state of relax and take it easy. On a funny note, I'm sure if anybody's gone to meetings enough, they go, there's a slip of the tongue. People say, sought through prayer and medication to improve our conscious contact with God. Yeah, that doesn't really work. I think that it's through prayer. These things will become part of a habit in your life. And when you are having terrible times, you'll go back to the habit. Well, hopefully you won't get back to the habit. You'll be doing the habit of, God, help me, save me from being angry. I have to apologize. I have to make amends because I don't want to go back to the addiction. Versus the habit where the addiction's just sitting there waiting to try to, hey, use me. And it's like, break the glass box in case of emergency. And it's like, no. We will recoil from it as from a hot flame, it says. We don't, on the top of page 87, we don't have to be perfect to have this work. That's the beauty, another beauty of this. We just have to do it. So the right answers will come, and they will. With my wife's cancer, the strangest thing happened. We had gone to see all of these doctors, and one doctor said, why don't you go to New York? And it's like, New York? Like, I'd known people go to New York to get care, and I thought, well, the cost and everything. But the reality is that it was a $35 copayment to go to Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital, one of the best cancer hospitals in the world. We had miles, and we would fly over there anyway to go visit a monastery sometimes. So why not this? So we did that, and the doctors over there who've seen a lot of this type of cancer said, no, we should do a wait and see. Great. We felt peace, and she felt peace about that, and I'm glad we did that. So we conclude our meditation with prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be. We do that. We just say, God, help me to know every hour of this day. Reveal your will to me. Here's some things we have to be careful not to do. Be careful not to ask for ourselves. Really? Like, that's the rule? Yep. If we pray for ourselves, then we're really praying for my will to be done. And then my selfishness starts to take hold and everything falls apart. Well, what about like healing? Like, what about my own health? Is that okay? And I may be just a weird person, and I'm not, I think, well, I'll just not over talk here, but it says we can ask for ourselves if others can be benefited. So if the healing, and I will say I've been healed many times when I just say, God, it's your will in my life be done. Like I had a speaking engagement in Kentucky to about 850 people on a Sunday at a church. And then prior to that, Friday nights and all day Saturday was going to be a marital retreat. And then I was going to ask, they wanted me to speak to a women's group. It was weird. And this is usually what happens is, I think sometimes we get sick so that then we realize who's in boss, who's really in boss. Like people, I can get up and walk across the room if God so wills it. It's by his grace that I can do anything. And I think of sports figures, these athletes that do all this wonderful thing, win the game, and it's like all they have to do is have a bad case of diarrhea and maybe they're not going to win that Super Bowl. So I think we so unconsciously take God for granted, assuming he'll give me what I need to do whatever. And I think in his wisdom, he humbles us to help us realize, okay, I'll get to speak to those people if God so wills it. And I was feeling not good. I don't know what day, maybe it would have been Wednesday or earlier. I just didn't feel good. I was getting a sinus infection. The plane trip is already planned. They've already paid for tickets. But God, what do you want? What do you want? And I just prayed and meditated, and God, I knew I was to go. He then directed me to go to get a Jamba Juice of all things. It's like, okay, I drive 3 miles down the road. I end up at the Jamba Juice. A woman out of the blue says, here's a coupon for a cold buster. Oh, by the way, I felt this need to get a cold buster, which is their drink that helps with colds. And I took that as a sign, like, wow. So from there, I felt better knowing God was with me, that it's going to be okay. And I was not totally well, but I was, I guess, okay enough to be there and do whatever God wanted me to do. I did make some mistakes, which is humbling, but whatever. Yeah. Is it worth? I think so. So all the speaking I thought was pretty good by God's grace. Prepared well. My biggest concern was this homily, this speaking to the people, not because of the size. It's just that I so honor priests. I think they'd do a better job than I should, and why ask me? So I prepared for the Sunday of I actually forgot what it was, but as they are reading the gospel, they're talking about the 10 lepers. I didn't prepare for that. Kind of freaked me out. I thought, well, can I change it? I gave the shortest homily in the world. I think that disappointed them. It disappointed me. It's my pride that would be obsessed with me making a mistake. And what happened? There's 2 different calendars. One calendar under one tradition says you'd have this gospel reading and another. So I had this beautiful thing, and I should have just been more spontaneous. I should have, whatever. That's the thing, is God is God. I'm a human being. And God so willed that he allowed me to do that, and so getting rid of morbid reflection. What could I have done better? In that case, I didn't know what I didn't know. I now would be more flexible, probably less fearful. See, again, here's how you use the program. Fear is me trusting in myself, like we read about together. It's always going to be about self-reliance, self-powered, self-directed. I could have been fearful, like, oh no, I don't want to be sick on a plane and all that, or too embarrassed to call and cancel. How do you cancel it? You don't feel like you cancel, and all these people are expecting that. A marriage retreat, it's already done. No. So we live and learn in this broken world. And by the way, all this works really well for the pandemic. All these questions, every day. The what could I have done better? I think I skipped through a little bit of that, but what could I do better? This goes back. That's such a powerful question. And if you sit and pray, well, you can pray standing, but pray and meditate with a pencil and say, God, please reveal to me what I could have done better. That's how we grow. Yeah. Should I share this story? I think I should. I don't know this person, and I share this with all respect, but I had heard of a person who was in 12 steps, AA 12 steps, and people all really knew this person, etc. it came to my attention that this poor soul was now in jail for being inappropriate with the youth. So what happened? Well, knowing these steps, I know that if a person had prayed, constructively reviewing the day, were they resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Maybe dishonesty would have. Is there something they should have shared with someone? What could this person have done better? You see, if they were asking God to direct all their thoughts, God would have helped them get help for that other issue. And I think that's where, if we do this program effectively, we won't switch from one addiction to another. But we're all in danger of being blinded to parts of ourselves that we just can't see. We're blind. We can't help. And so what do? We pray incessantly. God, please reveal to me how I can be better. What do you want me to do? And that's where these two steps, this step together will actually help save you from much misery. Yes, difficult things will happen, but if you don't screen yourself or you don't examine yourself, you're going to end up with problems like this. And that's where I feel bad, because I can't judge whether a person's doing the program or not, but I can say that this, and I point to this, this will help you really big time. We can ask others to join us. It says we can ask our wives or husbands. It's funny, I've never really done that. I pray with my wife, but I don't really ask her to join in my meditation. Where am I selfish, dishonest? Well, I've actually asked those questions. Memorize a few prayers. And so we'll talk about that. I don't like, they use the word memorize. I would say just put a prayer on a card and start praying it. And when you do that, you'll put your heart where your mouth is. You'll start to have an experience. I'm going to run and grab a prayer here. So this was a little gift to myself. I got it at a 12-step bookstore. Yeah, and I grab it off the wall all the time. Now, you've heard of the Serenity Prayer, I'm sure. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The rest of the prayer, this is a long version. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. This is by Reinhard Niebuhr. I like the long version of the prayer. I shouldn't say everybody should pray it, but I do like it because it goes right into the 24 hours at a time, one day at a time, enjoying the moment. Why did we use our addiction? To enjoy the moment. The problem is we were using a substance that bites us in the butt in the end, and it just doesn't work. But if we enjoy the moment with God and ask God to be with me in this moment, he will come. And I got that from a gentleman, a monk, who I was asking, for advice. And he said, just say, pray this prayer, God, be with me in this moment. It's like, wow, that's so Simple. And I was praying other simple prayers. I pray a prayer called the Jesus Prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. Mercy, we tend to think with our brains means the word like we're dangling by a thread and he chooses not to snip it today. I mean, that's a gruesome, weird version of mercy. But mercy does mean to save us from what we could punishment-wise. But mercy, really, in the origin of the word mercy, comes from the word oleo, olive oil. Eleison, Kyrie eleison means Lord, the main one. The main one. Lord meaning, think feudal system. You lived as a serf. You live on the land. He would take care of you. You worked for him, but he managed your life. And so Kyrios, Kyrie eleison means Lord, have mercy on me. And mercy means tender mercy. It means love, is what it really means. So you're actually saying, Lord, love me. And so I'm asking for whatever I need without even knowing what I need. So there's that prayer. There's another prayer I like. It's called the Lord, I do not know what to ask of thee. I'm sorry, I'm using these and thous, but that's how I memorized it. And I didn't memorize it, I just prayed it a lot, and then pretty soon it just sticks. And I know I don't have it perfect, but if I try to translate it, it will come out fumbled. But Lord, I do not know what to ask of thee. Thou alone know what are my true needs. You love me more than I myself know how to love. Help me to see my real needs, which are concealed from me. I do not dare ask either for a cross or for consolation. I only wait on thee. Strike me down and raise me up. I worship you in silence in your unsearchable ways. Pray thou thyself in me. Yeah, and that's a good all-encompassing prayer. It's safe to pray that prayer. And again, it reflects what we're saying tonight is, God, whatever your will is, please manifest that will in me. So say like we have hard times coming ahead. Say like, should I get the vaccine? Should I not get the vaccine? Pray about it. Ask God for direction. He'll guide you. He'll steer you right. Boy, this is tough, but I think I'll say it. It's like, rather than run to almighty Google and I'll just use my own brain power to figure it out. It says in the AA book, many of us held on to our own ideas and the result was nil till we let go absolutely. So we let go absolutely of our own thinking. Our own thinking is not going to help us here. So after we've concluded our meditation, we're done. And it takes about 10, 15 minutes or shorter, really. Just doing it is important. But during the day, we can tap into God's power. And it says in facing indecision, well, actually, I'll read it because it's nice. In fact, I'm going to go back to the screen. And so in my book, just to show you, this is how it works. I mean, it's just, you want to interact with it in a pen. At the bottom of page 87, it says, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. So agitated could also mean angry. Doubtful could also mean fear. So we have those two things going on. So we pause. We have to, we stop ourselves. We have to snap out of the anger trance or the fear trance. And we ask God for the right thought or action. Sometimes we pray for a decision. In this case, so this is how the prayer goes. I'm angry about something. God, what is the right thought here that I should be thinking? What is the right action? So we're actually asking God to renew our minds, to change our thinking. Yeah, instead of us trying to just change our thinking at our own willpower. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show. That reminds me of the director wanting to run the whole show. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. We are then in much less of danger, of excitement, fear, anger, worry, selfishness, or foolish indecisions. We become more and more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, meaning untaught. So we let God discipline us in a simple way we have just outlined. So, so we do this over and over and over, and that's how this works. We stop. We ask God for the next thought or decision. What action? Sometimes you can ask for a decision too, and that comes from the phrase when it talks about when we're fearful. We ask God for a decision and who I should be. Constantly reminding ourselves we're no longer running the show, saying to ourselves many times a day, thy will be done. So we actually have to do it. That's actually the thing is, I wish I could have some recordings sometimes, but I remember being in a meeting once and this woman said in the most funny voice, she says, wow, the steps don't really work themselves, do they now? It's true. The steps don't work themselves. But I wouldn't call them work because it's really not work. I mean, it's to ask for this gift. We are gifted sobriety each day is how it really works. Is it work to go ask God for these things? I guess it is. But compared to what he does for us, it would be impossible for me to get rid of anger, impossible for me to get rid of addictions, impossible to do that. And how do you counterbalance this with we relax and take it easy, which the 12-step people say. We don't struggle. I can almost gauge, am I working the program if I'm struggling? If I'm struggling, I'm not surrendered. Jesus said, not to get too preachy here, but Jesus did say that my yoke is easy, my burden is light. And I wondered, well, gee, that doesn't sound like my experience. It's because I did not really experience his grace, really. I have glimpses of it. Once you have a glimpse of that space where God's love is there and drives away fear, or you end up having the yoke and the burden light and easy. It was from and here I was a Bible college student. I read the Bible all the time, but it was the 12-step people that I was reading meditation from a long time ago. And this guy talked about this. He said that when Jesus said that, what does he say right after this? Forgot the gentleman's name, but he was a British preacher that people were listening to. He says, come learn of me, for I am meek and lowly. So he began to talk about humility is how we get that state of my yoke is easy, my burden is light. When Eric has an inflated sense of self, he starts to get resentful. He starts to get angry, fearful, selfish, meaning inflated. I have a plan for the world. Guess what? The burden gets heavy. If I die And it's no longer I who lives, but Christ lives in me. And I begin to empty myself of myself. And I really don't want anything anymore except God's will. I become kind of a vessel just for his spirit to be in. But that's what I want to do, is just be a container. Then things get light. So the wonderful thing is God forgives us. He has a plan that helps us through this. We don't have to be alone. We do this with the fellowship of other people. Really important for us just to practice this. We get rid of self. This process is a self-ridding process. Early Christian church called this kenosis, self-emptying. And then I reiterate, the action we take is asking and waiting upon God and listening. I'm happy to say that we're getting there. By now, if you may go, well, how do I do this? Well, you do this with another person. We've had people say, well, could you just do this? What this is almost a class. It's teaching you what to do. It gives you exactly where to go. If you've done this on your own and you're getting success, great. But I think you really need a partner in recovery. And people then interact every day. Not every day, but sometimes every day. How are you doing? And what are we sharing? I'm sharing how I'm processing my resentments, fears, selfishness, and dishonesty situations, and asking God's will to be done. So that's what a phone call would sound like. I was mad at the salesperson. I realized I had to apologize just midstream there. And I've had that happen where then she's crying. I feel bad she's not used to someone apologizing midstream. She didn't cry hard. Yeah, that was a situation where I had my checkbook stolen. I went to the grocery store. I said, you got to stop these checks, and they said, oh yeah, we'll handle it. And then they didn't handle it. So I went back and I said, why are these things keeping on going? I put a stop, cancel. I was upset. I felt self-righteous and that, please don't do this. And then I said, I'm so sorry. You didn't try to do this on purpose. And it was, I think, 6 months later from when it happened. So, I apologize. You don't need that. And then I don't know, maybe she was just having a rough day. But that's where I didn't wait till the evening, by God's grace, to have to go, oh, wow, there's someone I tried to catch it midstream. So when I'm upset, it's always my defects of character. If I point the finger at the governor or point it at why do they do all that stuff, that's just the easiest distraction to get me away from self. I love this phrase. I heard this. If it's easier to be self-righteous if you have an enemy. And that's not recovery. That's looking for enemies to be upset, resentaholic, all that stuff. And then now I can just brush myself clean and I think I'm just fine, when really, if I don't believe I have enemies and I'm there to love them, even as difficult as that may seem. And for many years, as I'd share the 12-step message, I'd be fearful. I'm going to say something and then something bad will happen. And then what? I'll be a hypocrite, which I'm probably already somewhat of a hypocrite anyway. But I realized I used the program to then just trust that if that happens, God will help me with it. I'll just have to trust him. Well, what if I have to go through persecution and get sawn in two? I guess I'll just have to trust in I guess I'm powerless over that situation. And that I would be relying on self to get through that. Oh, what if I deny Christ? Yeah, no, I'd be relying on self. See, so it really does work. Whether you had a cancer situation or you have so much grief you just can't imagine, like it gets scary. We empty ourselves. And so I do like this. This is somewhat of a grid that helps us go through this. So, well, God bless us all. I love you all. Next week, we'll be talking about step 12, and then we will conclude our series in this, and we'll probably put up other videos. So you take care. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.